Welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete Dad Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be going over the ultimate nutrition guide for active dads. Now, before I get into today's episode, I like to go over what's going on in my life when it comes to maybe foods I'm eating, diet, working out, running, whatever it may be. I like to go over it at the beginning of the episode. So before I dive into the episode on the ultimate nutrition guide for active dads, I'm going to be going on what's been going on in my life recently. This past weekend, I had ran a half marathon. It is my last race of the season. I live in upstate New York, so there's not too many more opportunities where there's going to be a good time to run. I plan on continuing to run throughout the winter, but the weather can definitely be very unpredictable this time of year. I don't have any plans at this moment to travel anywhere to run. Prior 2 weeks ago, I ran a 15K sort of as a warm up for this half marathon. I had ran my first half marathon at the end of August, so this is the second one that I did this year. So I just want to give you a quick recap on how the half marathon went. And really, just to start off, I like to go into a preview of the race. So the first half marathon that I did ended up being a net downhill by just a decent amount of feet. I'm not sure what the elevation change was. It was pretty flat overall. Maybe the elevation change was 200 feet going uphill, downhill, 220 feet. Wasn't a big difference, but overall, it was a net downhill. Now, the one that I ran this past weekend, it was the same. It was not a net downhill. It wasn't a net uphill. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm thinking about it correctly. When I looked at my watch, we went up 566 feet and we went down 566 feet. And this was in the backcountry roads of New York. So there was just rolling hill after rolling hill after rolling hill after rolling hill. And it really wasn't a lot of spots where it'd just be a flat straightaway. And if it was a straightaway, it would definitely have a little bit of an incline, a little bit of a decline. So you're really going up and down, up and down, up and down the whole time. Where usually where I'm running, I usually pretty stay steady on the roads, gradual hills. I do like to do one run per week where I know there's going to be a ton of hills, sometimes twice per week. But I knew going into this course that there was going to be a lot of hills just looking at the elevation map that they had sent over to us. So that way I was mentally prepared to run this half marathon. But anyways, it definitely didn't make it any easier. Along with that is it was about 40 degrees, which is definitely nice running weather. I really prefer running in 40 degrees. Usually first mile or so I'm pretty cold, and then I start to warm up, from there on out, and I'm good. For this race, it was 40 degrees, but it had wind gusts of up to 30 miles an hour, so it dropped the temperature down to about 30 degrees. And I know I'm running 13.1 miles, but like, how much do I want to wear? Do I want to wear a hat? Do I want to wear a fleece? Or do I want to wear what I normally wear and just be cold? And the reason I bring that up is I ended up just going with what I had worn the previous 2 weeks, which was just a typical shirt like I have under now, an Under Armour quarter zip. I wear leggings, and then I wear a pair of 10,000, hopefully I'm pronouncing that company correct, a pair of 10,000 shorts, and then I wear my Hokas as well. And that's really the outfit that I go with. I wear that pretty much all the time now this time of year. Sometimes I'll wear the fleece if it dips below 30 degrees, but the problem I run into with the fleece that I wear from Under Armour is I can't roll up the sleeves, where with the quarter zip I can. So if I do become hot while I'm running with the fleece, there's not much that I can do, and it's definitely happened before where I overestimate how cold it is out. I ended up wearing the fleece and overheating. I mean, I'd rather be hot than be cold any day of the week when it comes to running this time of year. I'm not talking when I'm running in the summer and it's 80, 90 degrees. I would much rather be cold during that time. But when it's 40 degrees, 35, 30 degrees out, and I'm wearing this fleece, I overheat a little bit. That's perfectly fine. At least it's still pretty cold out, and it's acceptable to be wearing that fleece. At the time of year, the wind definitely played a big factor in it. When I'd be going uphill, a lot of times I was just going into the wind and it would just be pushing me back, and I would feel as though I I just like couldn't move. Basically, I'd just be running into this uphill, and the wind would be pushing me back. The hardest part, honestly, would be when we would have those straightaways, because that would typically mean that we're in open fields on either side of us. So there's no trees, there's no coverage, and we would get crosswind. So it would be pushing me hard to the right, and another direction would be pushing me hard to the left. And trying to stay on my feet definitely wasn't too easy. But I experienced crosswinds before this time of year. And again, this is new for me because I just started picking up running, honestly, really in the month of April. So I haven't had to deal with these heavy, strong winds where I ran throughout the summer. And yeah, you get a little wind here and there, but you don't get the high pressure and the low pressures coming together and creating that wind. And if you're wondering where I know that, best class I ever took in college was meteorology. Really enjoyed that. Learned pretty much everything. If I could go back in time, would think about being a meteorologist. But you have your high pressure, your low pressure, the winds colliding and creating the wind, which is why it's so windy this time of year, because it can be really cold in the morning. It can be a little bit warmer in the afternoon. So you get the warm temp, the low temp coming together and creating the wind. So definitely had been a little bit used to it, but not as easy when I was running this race. The race was pretty cool though. It started off at a fairground. We ran through the fairground, and then you were pretty much on pretty much backcountry roads the entire race, but it was just one big 13-mile loop. So where I started is where I finished. That was very nice in terms of my wife and my daughter coming to watch and spectate my race, because my wife was honestly able to drive the entire thing and just stop at different points, wait for me, then drive a little further down the road, wait for me, and I would see her, then go back, circle back to where we had started. When I ran the 15K, it was in a small city in New York, a little bit trickier to navigate. So it was a nice course within itself. I mean, again, other than the fact that there was rolling hills, wasn't not that I wasn't used to it, because I'm used to hills, but I'm just not used to so many hills out there. So that was definitely for a change. But overall, I felt pretty good up until, I would say, mile 10. That's probably where I started to feel it. I ran the 15K 2 weeks prior. Last week, the furthest I ran was 6 miles, and then now I'm running a 13.1. I think prior to that, I ran the marathon, obviously 26.2. And then I think I ran 2 weeks after that, I ran 10 miles. And then I think I ran the 9 mile or whatever, 9.3 miles, then nothing, then 6 miles. So I hadn't run this distance in a little bit. I was thinking last week, okay, I'm going to run 12 miles. I'm like, do I really need to do that? I mean, I feel as though I have the condition or the condition and the endurance from running this marathon where I don't want to tire my legs out so much. So once I got to mile 10, I was feeling a little sore, to be honest. I was like, okay, like, let me get this over with. And then mile like 12, and when you have 1 mile to go, I'm like, I know I can do this. I'm not gonna walk. I know I had to do that a little bit during the marathon, about mile 22, whereas like my legs just felt crumbled and they weren't feeling too hot. And this is more just like the heavy legs. I'm like, I got 1 mile to go. I can go. And of course, there's rolling hills on the last mile, and then you're running back into this fairground and straight up a hill. Because usually when I run like the last half marathon, I like to sprint the last half mile or so. I have some of the juice left in me, some of a kick, but in this one, I didn't have it in me. Just these hills. I mean, you're literally talking like a mile to go, and just still hill after hill after hill. I mean, you're going up, you're going down. And not that I like going down, but when you're going down so much, it definitely puts undue pressure on my knees, or at least I feel that way. So just was like, okay, I'm glad I finished this race. The goal going into this race was to break 2 hours. When I ran my previous half marathon at the end of August, so about 3 months ago, I ran it in 2 hours, 4 minutes, and some change seconds. Might have been 20 seconds or so. This one, I had been running more, where before I believe that when I was running 3 days a week, now I've been running 5 days a week, primarily for the last 3 months or so. My pace has increased from probably about 9:30, 10 minutes a mile to about 8:30 a mile. I can get it down to 8 minutes a mile, or 8:05, as I spoke on the last episode, for 6 miles. But I mean, that's really me pushing itself. So I felt comfortable about getting under the 2 hour time limit. Or for me, or for anyone out there that's running, trying to get under 2 hours, I believe it's 9 minutes and 9 seconds a mile. Then it's 9 minutes is what you want to shoot for, just in case the end miles are a little bit off or a little bit slower. I ended up running a pace of 8:32 for the entire thing. I think my slowest pace was maybe 8:50 And I just made the mistake at the start of the race where I got there a little bit late, waited too long to go to the bathroom, came out of the porta potty, and I was at the back of the corral. And if you've ever been at the back of the corral, usually, at least for this race, they start off, okay, you can run 7-minute miles up at the front, you can run 8-minute miles as you're going, say, the middle, you're running, 10-minute miles and beyond, you're in the back. So now I'm in the back, and it starts off, and I just get stuck with the walkers, which perfectly fine if you want to walk a half marathon, but when I want to go fast, it was it was hard to cut through, and early on, there's literally like horses going through where we just have the fence on either side of us, and maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 yards of width, so it was very tight in the beginning, but got through it. I think I ran that first mile in 8:50, and then pretty much from there it was pretty short. I think the fastest mile I went was maybe 8:15, and then pretty much from there was all 8:30 miles. I think my average speed was 7 miles an hour, my top speed was 7.5, and it was hard because there wasn't a ton of room to accelerate. Because when I'm going up these hills, my heart rate gets to like 175, 180. I want to be in the 160-ish, 165 range for this race. I'm going a little bit slower when I'm going down hills, but overall, came out to 8:30, ran it in an hour 52 and change, maybe like 20-ish seconds again, and ended up shaving about 11 minutes off. I think over 11 minutes because I ran it 152 or 153. Can't even remember the exact number. I believe it was 153 now that I recall, but shaved off about 11 minutes from my previous half marathon time. So was definitely pleased with that time, knowing that I ran my marathon about 45 days ago, and then now doing this half marathon, and this is my second half marathon doing, and then just going out there and trying to make this 2-hour goal and really knocking it out of the park and just being consistent with these 8.5-minute miles, which the last race I ran about 9.5-minute miles, so obviously a little bit faster during this one, and just a quick short turnaround time. I honestly feel if I was on the previous course, I could have broken an hour 45 just because it was more flat, where this one again was just hill after hill after hill, so it made it a little bit challenging. You had the winds, but I mean, I'm running outside this time of year anyways, so I'm used to the winds. I'm used to knowing what it's like. Okay, like I have a strong wind gust coming at me right now. I'm just going to slow down because I try to go fast. I'm not going to go fast. I got 30-mile-an-hour winds pushing me back. I'm just going to go tone it down a little bit. The wind's going to go away. I don't know if it'll go away totally, but this wind gust is going to die down, and I can continue on my race. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take a few days off of running. The mistake I feel as though I made with the marathon is I did the marathon finish on a Sunday, took the Monday off, started running again on that Tuesday, where my legs are pretty sore. I feel as though my knees are a little bit sore. Definitely not as bad as the marathon, but I felt as though I just jumped back into running like just too quick after the marathon. So the goal this week is to do the marathon, or not to do the marathon, run a half marathon on Sunday, take Monday off from running. Tuesday, thinking about I'm going to be doing just like a bike workout, probably do like an hour on the bike, and then Wednesday pick up the running again, and then see how that feels. See, okay, how far do I want to go? Do I want to go 6 miles, 5 miles, maybe 3, depending on how my knees feel during the run, but just being a little bit more cautious, where I feel as though I'm pretty much back from running the marathon, but doesn't necessarily mean that my knees didn't hurt there for a while, where it took me honestly probably at least a month for my legs to feel really good from that marathon. So that's the last race of the year. Looking forward to seeing what I can do next year. Again, I'm going to continue to run through the winter. Primarily going to keep it about 5 to 6 miles per run right now. Do that 4 to 5 times per week. Maybe throw in a 10-miler there, here and there. But I don't have these races. I enjoyed training for the marathon, but it just took so much mentally to do that if I do have another marathon, I want to make sure that I plan a lot further out than just giving myself 6 weeks to jump from a half marathon to a marathon pace. So that's what's really going on right now. When I'm recording this week of Thanksgiving, really looking forward to this holiday, one of my favorite holidays, get to spend some time with the family. And with that, I want to say that really leads us into today's episode, because I don't know if Thanksgiving is the best meal when it comes to nutrition, other than the fact that it's delicious. And I'm not going to worry about my macros or my proteins really that much. Maybe I'll have a protein shake in the morning, make sure I get a decent amount of protein in. But I mean, when it comes to fats, I like my cake or I like my pies. I might have a couple slices of pumpkin pie. I'm going to have a lot of gravy on my turkey. I'm not really going to worry about it. It's one day a year. So without further ado, let's just hop into the bulk of today's episode, which is the ultimate nutrition guide for active dads. Now, nutrition has had the biggest impact on my overall health and fitness. I've done a couple episodes on nutrition to this point, and if you listen to it before, I highlight the point where the biggest key for me was working with a nutritionist for about 3 to 4 months. We just went through what I was eating. It helped me primarily from the standpoint of lost about 10 to 15 pounds. Working with her, I was in a caloric deficit. So what that means is I was eating about 500 less calories per day than what I needed. So about when you eat 500 calories less per day than what is needed, that translates. If you do that every single day throughout the week, that translates to about a pound of weight loss per week. So I was happy to lose that weight, and honestly, the biggest impact was not having migraines anymore, or knock on wood, knock on my desk, not having too many migraines anymore. Where that was a big hindrance for me, would just bring me down, would knock me off course for a few hours, for 5 or 6 hours during the day, and definitely debilitating. And I feel as though I can't prove it, but my gut tells me that it was just a lot of the processed foods that I was eating. I was still thinking as if I was a college student, where I'd buy. You could see them there. They're like the sides that you can buy at the store. They're basically in like, what are they called? Pasta sides, I think they are. Used to make those where they're basically just powders. And then you throw them in a pot of boiling water. Now they make pasta. Same thing with mashed potatoes. So just a ton of processed food. So I think cutting those out have definitely helped me. But in today's episode, when I was thinking of putting this together, I was like, okay, what's the ultimate nutrition guide? For active dads, what I really want to go through is just like my experience and what my diet, and it's not so much a diet, it's more of a lifestyle change. I'm so used to it at this point. I'm not like eating sauerkraut or like zucchini, different foods that I'm not a big fan of just to eat them. I'm just eating foods that I enjoy, that are just better for my goals, because at the end of the day, I want to be fit and I want to be healthy, and nutrition plays a big role in both of those. So my mindset previously was I could eat anything that I want because I'm working out. My mindset has now changed into the food that I eat is fuel for my body. I'm spending time at the gym and I want to get bigger muscles. I want to look bigger. I want to get bigger. Well, the food I eat is going to play an impact on how I look, and to a certain degree, how I feel. Same thing with running. If I'm doing 2 sessions a day, one of lifting and one of some sort of cardio, primarily right now it's running, then I need to fuel my body so that I don't break down because I'm not getting enough proteins or fats or carbs in on any given day. So that was my mindset going into it, was I can eat anything that I want. So now it's like I'm going to use food as a fuel to reward myself. Okay, I worked really hard at this gym session today, or I went really hard in this run. I'm going to treat my body to a good protein shake, to a nice steak meal. That way it can, what's the word I'm looking for? Not restructure, I guess repair itself. That way I can grow bigger muscles, I can get faster. So that's my mindset today. What I would recommend starting off is just to track where you're eating. That was the biggest thing that my nutrition coach had shared with me, and it was just tracking primarily my fats, my carbs, and my proteins. So your big 3 macros. I use MyFitnessPal. I recommend getting it, even if it is a little pricey at $80 a year. It's phenomenal, where you can basically pretty much scan anything and it's going to come up in their app to use. I eat a lot of the same meals throughout the week, so I can just save those meals that I make. As an example, for lunch, honestly, pretty much every single day of the week, I'll put a chicken breast in a crock pot, and I work from home, so it makes it a little bit easier. So I'll put that in the morning, about 7:30 in the morning, throw a little bit of salt on it, and then at about noon, I'll grab it and I'll basically like use a fork and slice it out. So now I'm having pulled chicken. I'll throw that in a bowl, 8 ounces of that. I'm gonna throw in a cup of rice that I make. I have a rice cooker. I think I have the Black and Decker rice cooker, and I make rice about 2 to 3 times per week because I eat a lot of rice. I prefer white rice. I know my coach preferred, or no, I prefer jasmine rice. That's what it was. I prefer jasmine rice. I tried brown rice. I just couldn't get the taste of it. My coach recommended to me that's the best rice to have. I can't remember exactly why. All I remember is that she recommended that one. She didn't recommend white rice. I can't remember why, but she was okay with jasmine rice, so that's what I stick with today. So I'll make that, and then I'm going to throw in a handful of spinach. I'll throw in a chopped up red pepper, and then I use this Japanese barbecue sauce, and I sprinkle a little bit on that, and then I'll twirl it around in this bowl that I have, and then I'll have some carrots. So I know I've always just enjoyed carrots, so I want to be having that. I have that 5 days per week. So instead of me going in every single day and putting like spinach, red pepper, 8 ounces of skinless or shredded chicken breast, and 1 cup of this specific brand of rice and carrots, I can see that it's there every single time that I need it. So that's really nice about the app. They don't pay me or anything. I just recommend using it. I haven't found a better app, or I haven't tried a better app. That one just seems to do the job for me. What I found when I was tracking what I was eating, I realized 2 things. One, I wasn't getting enough protein in per day. 2, I was eating too much fat per day than what I really needed to be having. And then 3, that over time, I wasn't getting enough calories in per day, where the more fat you have, the more calories you have. But now I honestly eat quite a few meals per day. And my big meals are really 7 a.m., 12 p.m., and about 5:30 p.m. But in between there, I'll have a snack at 5:30 a.m., I'll have a snack at 11 a.m., and I'll have a snack at 4 p.m., and then usually before bed, I'll have like an apple or something at night after my 5:30 p.m. dinner. Before that, I was just having 3 meals a day, so I wasn't getting enough calories per day, especially when I started the cardio aspect of running. So just tracking what you're eating. What's nice about MyFitnessPal is you can put in your height, your weight, are you active, are you not active? There's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different options you can choose from. For me, I put in very active because I work out and then I run. So I'm looking at it usually about 2 hours per day worth of training. So I put in very active, and it showed me, okay, I need to get in about 3,100 calories a day. So then I could start to see, oh, okay, I'm not getting in enough calories per day. I think the carbs for me were 430 grams of carbs, 70 grams of fat, and my weight was about 175 pounds, give or take, on any given day, grams of protein. So my recommendation to you is, if you're an active dad, is like, okay, how do I fix my diet? Like, what should I do? Well, first and foremost, what's really important, what's going to keep you satiated, or what you considered full, would be your protein. So what I'd recommend starting off with would be 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. So this could be, if you're 175 pounds like I am myself, I want to have 175 grams of protein per day, and just keep it simple as that. You might be thinking, okay, 175 grams of protein, that's a lot of protein in per day. I don't know how I'm going to hit that. And I was right there with you. When I was starting off, I was getting like 75 grams of protein in per day. And then just over time, I started to increase it. I started to eat more chicken breast and have more steak and red meat. I know that if I'm having red meat, then there's going to be more fat in that. So maybe I figure out another way to cut back on some of my calories throughout the day. And not that I want to like restrict myself on anything that I'm eating, but maybe I have something a little bit that's not as fatty. If I know I'm going to be having like a steak that has 30 grams of protein, like last night, my wife and we made hamburgers, and it was like 30 grams of protein per burger, but 35 grams of fat. So a ton of fat in the burger. That's half my day's worth of fat right then and there. So like, as I go throughout my day, I'm going to have a little bit less fat in my meals. Maybe if I'm making a protein shake, I don't put that half scoop or half serving of peanut butter, which is 8 grams of fat. Maybe I don't use as much butter on my sourdough bread in the morning. Just different things like that, where I just, okay, if I'm going to be having a steak and there's more fat in it, I'm just going to cut it a little bit back throughout the day, so that way I can really enjoy it. And I don't have to worry like, oh, I'm at 70 grams of fat. Now I'm having this steak and it's 35 grams of fat. Or I'm having this burger, I should say, and it's 35 grams of fat. So first just tracking the protein, and then tracking the fat, tracking the carbs, and then from there just figuring out like what meals work for you. I know I recommended that I work with a nutritionist. That was very beneficial for me. I would recommend, if you're not sure where to start working with one, the one that I had worked with, she gave me meal plans throughout the week, and I started sort of varied it depending on what my tastes were like. But I mean, in the morning, big things are just like eggs. That's obviously a little bit of fat in that, but you get a decent amount of protein as well. For lunch, like I mentioned, I pretty much throw a chicken breast in the crock pot and have that pretty much every single day. And then when it comes to my dinners, pretty much very specific, where I'll have chicken, just a chicken breast. I like to buy different seasonings twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever the number may be, maybe 4 times a week. I'll have chicken. I'll have different chicken breasts. I'll have different seasonings. I'll cook them on the grill. Then I'll have a cup of rice and a cup of broccoli. I just keep it very simple. Sometimes I'll substitute the broccoli for sweet potatoes. Sometimes I'll substitute the rice for sweet potatoes, depending on what I'm looking to do. So that's really what I have. I mean, outside of that, I'll have tacos. So I'll have my red meat. I'm going to be having tacos tonight. So I do 8 ounces or 6 ounces of taco meat. And then I'll throw a little bit of taco seasoning. I'll do a cup of jasmine rice. And then I'll throw in a serving of refried beans, mix it up. I'll just put that on my plate and eat it like that. And then I'll have a cup of broccoli to go with it. And you just start to figure out, okay, like what really works for me. Same thing. I'll have steak about once per week. And I'm going to be having a cup of rice and a cup of broccoli. And it's just very simple. That's what works for me. So I substituted out these pasta sides for these different alternatives when it comes to this rice and it comes to this broccoli. Yeah, it doesn't always taste the best, but sometimes I might buy a little soy sauce for my rice. Maybe I'll take and buy a different type of sauce for my rice and just mix it up. That way, I mean, there's really not too much you can do with broccoli. I mean, I want to keep it healthy. I don't want to put too much olive oil and salt and pepper on it. I pretty much just will boil it and then have it like it is. Just make sure it's good. Make sure you boil it long enough. I make that mistake quite a bit where I don't boil it long enough and it doesn't taste the best, to be honest, but it's good nonetheless. But over time, I was just watching YouTube videos. I would watch like Nick Bear's fitness videos, and he would have what he eats in a day. There's other fitness influencers, I guess you could call them, out there on YouTube, and I would just watch their grocery hauls. I would watch the meals that they're cooking, and then start to just make them myself and see like, okay, I like this meal. I don't like this meal. You really just got to figure out what works best for you. I found what works best for me is just having this routine of consistently going out there and making the same meals every single day of the week. It just makes it easier for me. I don't even have to think about it. I know, okay, it's Tuesday, tacos. Okay, Wednesday, it's going to be steak. Okay, Thursday, it's going to be chicken. I know exactly what we're going to be eating for lunch. I know exactly what we're going to be eating for breakfast. And I will say that I do like to supplement, before I hop off today's episode, I do like to supplement my protein. We're having a protein shake. So right now I have 2 different types of protein shakes. I have the Fairlife protein shake, and I believe that's 30 grams of protein. I buy that at my local BJ's, so I get like 12 for $21, a decent deal. Probably not, maybe not the best protein, but when it comes to convenience, I can't complain with it. And then the other days when I have more time, typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on the weekend as well, I'll make a Transparent Labs protein shake. So I'll use their French vanilla whey protein isolate, and I really like theirs. I think it tastes great. Honestly, it's really nice. I don't know what the price is online. It might be $59.99 or something like that for 30 servings. I get it at my gym for $52.99. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they order in bulk, if they have a membership there. It's cheaper getting it at my gym. I don't have to pay shipping. I know about every 6 weeks or so, I'll be like, hey, to the morning at the front desk, I'm just going to grab this, and she bills it to my account. Not to get too off track, but I do like Transparent Labs. I find that they have the best protein on the market, even if it is a little bit pricier. So you can definitely add in protein shakes. Another go-to meal that I have is I'll have a piece of sourdough. I'll have a serving of tuna, trying to make sure I had the right fish there, and not to say that I'm having salmon, because I do like salmon on occasion, but I have tuna, and then I'll throw a little bit of slice of provolone, and I'll throw it in a toaster oven. I use the Primal Kitchen mayo for that as well, and that's like 375-ish calories, 30 something 8 grams of protein, like 7 or 8 grams of fat. Really not that high in fat, a decent amount of carbs, with the bread. So over time, you could figure out, okay, like these are the meals that work best for me. But I would just start experimenting with it, like, okay, what works best for me? What should I be doing? And again, it goes back to starting off tracking your food. That way, you have a baseline of where you are, and then it just comes to swapping your meals that you have out. And this was like a period, pretty much over a year that I had done this. It wasn't like I swapped everything out. I made everything super healthy, and I cut out everything I liked. It was just, okay, let me substitute this out. Maybe instead of having whatever the brand name is of mayonnaise, I'm gonna have Primal Kitchen, which I know is gonna be a little bit better for me. Occasionally, I like to have queso with my tacos, and I was always having it before. That probably wasn't the best for me. Then I bought the Primal Kitchen queso. Was trying that. Honestly, didn't really like the flavor of that, but just using that as an example, tried that out, and then I just ended up kicking it altogether. Ended up cutting out soda. If you're looking to cut out more fat, you could look at having almond milk instead of your regular milk. Just different things like that that you could take a look at just gradually over time, because I don't want you to get overwhelmed making all these diet changes when it should be something that's done a little bit at a time and something that you still enjoy. I don't want you dreading going through and eating meals that you don't necessarily like or want to eat. I want you to still be able to go out there and enjoy every meal that you have. So that's it for today, everyone. That is the ultimate nutrition guide for active dads.